Well, good morning, everyone. If you're able, and we rise and follow me in the flag salute, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, today we'll get approval of minutes in a minute. We have a consent agenda. We have 3 motion items today that we'll go over. There is one timed item at 11, and that's basically opening the bids that I think we put out for homeless project type thing. Okay, and then we'll head into public comment. So I believe Commissioner Mortensen probably reviewed the minutes for us.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, everybody else. Yes, I did review the minutes of the activities of last week and I moved to approve those minutes.
Any questions on the minutes? We call for the vote. All those in favor of approval?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Passes. Consent agenda today. I'll run through this briefly, and then if you have any questions on any items, please feel free to ask. First item is an agreement and a bid with the Washington State Department of Transportation on the Lexington Bridge at the 2 stoplights, the stoplight at the bridge and West Side Highway, and the stoplight where the bridge and the northbound exit is. Those two lights. We have, and I don't know the time frame on it, but we'll be doing, it's time to redo that road surface. Part of that is there's a loop system in there that runs those lights right now. We'd like to upgrade it, or they want to upgrade it to a system where they don't have to replace the loop when they tear it out. From conversation yesterday, it sounds like the cost is about the same, and this is just a better technology and saves us time in the long run. So that's what that deal is. State of Washington will do that for us. We have a bid award to Northwest Linings and Geotextile Products. That's for the landfill. This was the lowest of 3 bids. Resolution on the election of a new board chair last week. Letters and notices. Letter went out to Gerald Sorrell, reappointing him to Cowlitz County Boundary Review Board. There's a Lower Columbia Fish Recovery Board webinar on the system. It's a 46-page slideshow. If you want to get on there and look through that, it's available. The letters from FERC, FERC, the Federal Energy Regulation Commission on C&D. These are both acknowledgements that reports that we were to file have been filed. The first one, we filed that report in February. The second one, we filed that report back in November, and that's just acknowledgement that we have done that. And then we sent a letter of recommendation for the Port of Kalama to the feds. They're looking for a grant to extend their rail support lines in their tracks by about 25% extension of the line, about 19,500 feet. So the commissioners, they asked us for a letter of support, and we did that and sent that out. And then we have vouchers in the amount of $1,359,083.56. Anybody have any questions? I would entertain a motion to approve.
So move.
Motion to approve. I see no hands. Call for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Okay. First motion item is a bid award approval to C&R Homes and Construction for a new roof replacement on our Health and Human Services building. And I see Will is here to kind of go over that.
Good morning, Commissioners. Will Tosted, Facilities Service Manager. This is to replace the roof on the Health and Human Services building right there on 9th Avenue. We went out to bid and we got 6 bids with C&R Homes and Construction coming in low bid, a little shy of $330,000.
Just to be sure, that's the whole roof.
Yep, so this is to replace the whole roof, 4 drains, the roof railing. There's no railing on it currently, so that includes a railing as well. So it's all encompassing, yeah. And, you know, once it's been replaced, it'll meet current code.
And did I understand from the workshop yesterday that they will be adding an access from inside the building?
Correct. That bid also includes an internal access. Currently, right now, you have to access the roof with a 25, 30-foot ladder on the perimeter of the building. So an internal access will help maintenance people, access safely to mechanical of that roof.
And all of the HVAC is on the roof.
Correct.
So it's a kind of a big deal to do the roof.
Definitely. Yep. We had an evaluation some years back and it showed, I think, 30% wet insulation. So it's due. It needs replaced.
That includes the replacement of the insulation.
Correct. Yep. Thought I heard a comment, couldn't hear it.
You got to come up.
Yeah. The audience can't hear when you ask those things. I'm afraid you kind of have to come to the mic.
I think she asked, is there a warranty? And yes, all of our contracts include a 1-year warranty, and then there's a manufacturer warranty on the products. It's in the contract.
Yeah, and just we now are far more careful about keeping track of those things and documenting who did what, when and where and how long it's good for, kind of thing.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, would you like a motion?
I don't see any questions from the audience. Come on up.
I take it that's a not yet.
This is real quick, but I think 1 year is awfully short.
Thank you.
What, 5 years? 5 years? Can we get a 5-year guarantee, warranty?
We'd have to work with contracts on that.
I agree. 1 year is just one rainy season. You don't even get a chance to see if there's a leak.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I just wanted to respond to the 1-year warranty contract. This is Savannah Clement with Public Services, working with Will and Facilities. We are able to negotiate items in the contract. This is just, I don't want to say just, but it is a bid award, going through the bid award process. There are some items that we can negotiate when it comes time with the contractor.
So I take that to mean that we still haven't got a final contract signed, right?
Correct.
So there's time to extend the warranty on it, and that may affect the price.
Correct.
Okay, it'd be helpful for us. How close was the nearest bid?
The next bid up is approximately 33% higher at $421,891.13.
That's a big difference, yeah.
What is the expected life expectancy of this roof? Is it only for 5 years? Is it only for a year?
No, it's a 20 to 30-year roof. It's TPO material.
God, it seems reasonable to expect that maybe the warranty ought to last half what you expect the life of the roof to be. How many square feet is this?
I don't have that information in front of me.
Okay,
But to further expand on your question, the 1-year warranty is for the contractor's work. The manufacturer warranty is longer than that. I'd have to look at the contract, but I want to say the manufacturer's, I can't shoot off the top of my head. I don't want to give an answer there. But it's longer. It's longer than a year. 1 year's for the contractor's work and installation.
okay.
I think that's fairly typical that the people installing it will give you a warranty on their work, but the manufacturer, as long as it's installed per their specs, will give you much longer.
Exactly.
So it probably, maybe if you get that answer, I can share it with them next week so they know where
Yep.
we're at. Yeah.
I'll get that.
Any other questions?
You've got a hand up,
I do.
Ashley.
Good morning, Commissioners. This is Ashley Clausen in purchasing. Just for clarification on the warranty, the manufacturer warranty is actually 20 years from date of completion, and the installer's warranty is 2 years.
Oh, perfect.
And that includes inspections after 2, 5, 10, and 15 years after completion.
Thank you, Ashley. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Well, you got your answer quicker. So that's good. I don't see any other hands. I would entertain a motion now. Commissioner Mortensen.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the bid award to C&R Homes and Construction as has been discussed.
Any further discussion? Seeing no hands, call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
I also vote aye. Motion passes. The next two involve noxious weed control. I don't know if, I don't see,
There she is.
Good morning.
there you are, Jennifer. Okay. Looks like these are basically extensions of existing contracts, but you don't want to tackle them for us?
That is correct. They are, both of the items are modifications to existing contracts. The first one is for a contract from the WSDA. They're adding $1,500 to our Class A grant and also expanding the noxious weeds that are listed in that contract. So we're now able to help landowners with treatments for eggleaf spurge, giant hogweed, and some of our new milk thistle sites, in addition to false brome, which are all Class A species that we have in our county. If you recall, Class A species are required for eradication, so we're working really hard to find resources to help our landowners with those species. Is there any questions on the WSDA modification?
Any questions? I'm not seeing anything. Jennifer?
Okay, great. Would you like me to wait to talk about the second contract, or you want me to go forward?
We can do both of them together.
I think we can do both of these together because they're very, very similar. Why don't
Okay.
you cover the second one, and unless we get, a lot of comments on that, we'll just do them both together.
Okay.
Okay.
So the second modification is an extension in timing. So moving our 17 SA grant, which is a stewardship funding based grant with the Forest Service, moving the expiration date to January of 2027, and also adding $40,000 for the treatments that we organize up there within the monument. So we do have some funding right now. This extends the funding and extends the timeline for us. Primarily on the mountain, we are working on treating hawkweeds, tansy ragwort, knapweeds, and having this funding allows us to secure a treatment crew for the summer and also the ability to treat other noxious weeds if they are found.
Perfect. Any questions on these two extensions, Flo? Yeah.
Jennifer, having coordination between the county and the Forest Service is best practices for dealing with invasive weeds, because if you don't stop them up in the higher elevations of the watersheds, they just flow down into the watershed. So
Yes, that is a really good point. In addition to the monument being a very high traffic recreation area, any hikers or people who are visiting the area are very likely to bring in species from other areas or take these species home with them. So a lot of our work prioritizes the trail system and the wildlife grazing areas.
I agree that, seeds can be carried by fowl, wildlife, and recreation people. However, I have hurt feelings. I really do, because I'm a horse lady. And for many, many years, we were not allowed to go into certain areas, and we still are not allowed to go into certain areas because we might take in something that would be in there. And now we're paying for that. I feel that that's not fair. We should have been allowed, if we're going to spend money to do that, then where is our right to ride up in that area? Because right now we can't. There's a lot of areas that we cannot ride, where we've had, before the Mountain Blue, that's quite a few years ago, extensive trails, beautiful trails up there. And but now we're not allowed to, but now we're, because of those mentioned, that we couldn't, we would be spreading harmful seeds and whatnot. And now we're being asked to pay for it. And I think that's unfair, that the county has to pay for something that some of their recreationists can't use in the way they wanted to. So does that mean that possibly that area would be open up to horse use? Because that would be a fair thing to do.
I don't disagree with you, Flo. These are monies coming to us from, they're receiving these monies as grants to do the work. The Forest Service is paying us to do this work.
Well, okay.
And
Then
it's coming out of your pocket. It is.
it is, but yet
And I agree with you that the land use issues are not fair. I've worked on them for many, many years too, but I'm not sure Jennifer can make a change for you.
well, I appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Jennifer, I understand you probably cannot,
No.
but can you put a seed of thought into this, okay? Into the people that might make some decisions, because for many years, we've not been allowed to enjoy the trails that we know some of them still exist.
Yeah.
I belong to the Backcountry Horsemen, and we help on the trails extensively, as you know, probably. And to be denied an area where other people are going and probably doing more harm than what the horse people would be doing, I think is unfair. So if you could plant that seed somewhere, I'd really appreciate it.
I will keep my ears open for opportunities to place that seed. Yes,
Thank you,
because
Jennifer.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd
Thank
like,
you.
like to add that it isn't always, that very seldom is there a single reason why an action is taken. So there's probably any number of reasons people who could make the call decided to simplify things. In my book, probably improperly, but nevertheless, it's not just one thing.
Yeah. I've been fighting that battle since the late 80s.
My name is Scott Olson, and I'm just, for clarity's sake, is the county's noxious weed program, does it also include all the city municipalities we have, or do they just do the outside city limits? So we have an issue over by the skate park and that Rotary Park right next to it. It's surrounded with poison hemlock. It's been there for several years. I've brought it to several people's attention. We don't seem to be getting anything done. You have kids and dogs that all play in that area. It's pretty, I don't know if the city isn't going to do it. Is the county going to step up, or do you wait for the city to call you in, or how does that work within city limits?
So I do work with the cities when they have noxious weed infestations. I'll be sure to address that with the city of Kelso in the next week or two. I'm working on meeting with each of the cities in the next few weeks to make sure they're aware of the noxious weeds and their priorities. We recently held a training event for public employees primarily, and made them aware of the species that are present generally and how to treat them. So hopefully we can work with them to get that taken care of in the next couple of weeks.
Okay, appreciate it.
Yep.
A quick question, how could the public contact you if they had such issues so they wouldn't necessarily have to be held off in time?
Yeah, you can either call us, email us, or come by our office. We do have slightly limited hours from Monday through Thursday, roughly 9 to 4. But you can also always call us and leave a message, and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. Our phone number is 360-577-3117. And our email is noxiousweeds@cowlitzwa.gov.
Okay. Any other questions? See no hands? Can we take these two motions as one? You good with that?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the modifications to the contracts between the Noxious Weed Board and the Washington State Department of Agriculture and the Gifford Pinchot National Forest in the amounts presented in the staff report.
Had a motion?
I've got another question. This is just general edification kind of thing. The $40,000 is, could you flesh that out a little bit? Is that over 7 years or however many years it is, or what makes that number up?
So that number is to fund directly a grant crew, their expenses for labor, herbicides, and travel to get to and from the mountain, all direct expenses that they incur in the pursuit of treatment. And it adds to existing funding and extends the date to 2027. So we now have about 4 years to spend that money, coupled with another grant that we have. We're spending anywhere between 30 and 50,000 a year during the treatment season of all grant funding coming from the Forest Service to do those treatments. So this would cover roughly 1 season of treatment, but it gives us multiple years to spend that to secure funding for long-term treatments.
And is there a metric associated to that? How do they know you've spent it?
I've been working with the invasives program manager to calculate what would our treatments cost each year. And obviously we don't get all of the funding that we need to cover all treatments, so we do have to prioritize. So to hit our priority areas, this is what it would roughly cost.
Yeah, no, I mean, I go out and how effective am I is a measure you're probably interested in. If each time you go out there, the situation actually aggravates rather than improves, you're saying I better not go out there. So I'm just saying, how do you measure that?
So we have a mapping system that the Forest Service maintains, and we follow up on our infestations each year and we remeasure. Often what we're seeing is that the existing infestations get smaller, and near large infestations, new satellite populations begin to pop up. As we treat the species, the animals are still moving it, so we're trying to get ahead of that. The difficult part for noxious weeds management is that seeds can be viable in the soil for many years. So preventing things from going to seed is really important, because that really helps with the long-term management. Letting something go to seed 1 year could cause an issue for 10 years. So really, it's really important to be out there and identify the infestations while they're small, which is primarily where we're finding ourselves right now. Finding small new infestations and getting those treated so that they don't cause a longer term issue.
And do you, when you collect material, you put it on a scale and you report that, you know, you collected 30,000 pounds of tansy or something?
We're not able to do that within the monument because the majority of what we're doing is herbicide treatments. We do some mechanical treatments, especially when the weather is bad, removing things like herb robber or scotch broom, or doing cut stump treatments for that within the monument. So there are a couple of days that I can get statistics, you know, we got 7 bags or a truckload or whatever it might be. But for the most part, the hawkweed treatments that we're doing and the knapweed treatments are with herbicides, so we don't get a measurement. But at the end of the year, we do get a total acreage, as well as the amount of herbicide used or the amount of acreage that was treated by hand, things like that.
And the same question on the $1,500, which seems like, anyhow, yeah.
So with that $1,500, the sites that we have are very small. So there is not a lot of treatment required. It typically will take 1 or 2 of our staff members for those projects to go out for an hour or 2 to get those little sites treated, but ensuring that they don't expand is our success measure.
Thank you. By the way, I appreciate all your answers. They're quite complete.
Thank you.
Jennifer, we also had a comment in the chat about why the state doesn't do more to fight Scotch broom.
Funding is the biggest issue. I know that we have been working very closely with all of our road crews, both WSDOT, the county road crew, to try and get those infestations addressed where they can, but there's so much of it that they don't have the resources to treat all of it. So currently our strategy with those agencies is to treat the small isolated infestations to prevent new infestations from establishing, and when possible, treat the outside of larger infestations to slowly work into those large populations over time.
Are you able to go to the freeway median divider? Is that in your jurisdiction, if I'm using the term correctly?
Yes, it is in our jurisdiction, and I'm working with WSDOT to get those. And last year we did see a lot of progress with Scotch broom. I don't think it will ever go away in our county, not just in the right of way, but in general. But it's something that we all need to work towards. And so the strategy that I just described is how we're doing that.
We have a citizen comment?
2 questions. One is, as far as the monument area goes, do we stop at the county line? Does Skamania County pick up their share of this?
So because this side of the monument is accessible by Spirit Lake Highway, it would take Skamania County far too long to get over here each day for treatments. So we've put in a memorandum of agreement in place, and we do treat into Skamania County with the Forest Service funds. And each year when I meet with Skamania County and the Forest Service, we also meet with Lewis County to discuss priorities and things like that. So we're all working towards the same goals within the forest.
Well, who's paying for that? I mean, are we getting the funds back from Skamania County for our involvement on their side of the county line?
So all of the project that we do is funded from the Forest Service. So I suppose that we would be getting a share of Skamania County's allotment of Forest Service fundings, but I'm not exactly sure how they divvy up their money within the Forest Service. So none of this money is coming from our local funds, just nationwide funds.
And so we got to trust to the Forest Service that they're giving us a fair share to cover that area. Okay.
I guess.
Yeah.
Well, if I might say, it's really taken care of automatically, because you see here on paper, there's a grant, and that grant buys so many hours, and essentially, and so it's just taken care of.
Okay, so as far as the private timberlands go for Weyerhaeuser and whoever else owns large sections, how is that covered in the county?
So wherever we can see a noxious weed infestation, we try to reach out to those timberlands, whether it be private or public, and ask them to control their species as well. Most of the timberlands have issues within several years of harvest, because that's when the forest canopy opens up and allows the soil to be exposed for new seeds to germinate. So we're working with each of those agencies as well to try to address their noxious weed issues. We can't be everywhere, but wherever, especially wherever we can receive a complaint, we always follow up on those, and we do our best to find those infestations as we can.
And does our noxious weed cover like Interstate 5 or right away down on Interstate 5 when I see Scotch broom and stuff there? Are we covering that, or is that something the state does?
So our noxious weed program surveys for these weeds and communicates with the agency responsible. So I am in communication with WSDOT about their weeds.
So, okay. I
They're
don't know if that
responsible
answers
for
my
controlling
question.
it.
They are?
They're responsible for controlling it, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
I mentioned it before, but I presume that you're working with Bonneville Power. The same thing in the recent years, they've done a lot more canopy removal on all of their sites, taking trees out, and that is prolific for the growth of the Scotch broom and the other weeds. So there, with all of the lines traversing all of our county and state, that is a carrier of noxious weeds if they aren't taken care of. So Bonneville should be responsible for their areas, even though they say the owner owns the property, they are the ones doing the canopy and the removal of on the grounds.
Thank you. Yes, it's a difficult situation to handle.
I'm wondering how safe are the herbicides for the elk and deer herds?
So the herbicides that we have used in the monument are safe for elk and deer herds. They have to go through a national review process to even be used in the monument. They restrict all of the herbicides that we use. They have to go through a pesticide use proposal, and they are evaluated for as many environmental and wildlife factors as they can evaluate them for. So the ones that we are using are very selective, and they do not have an impact on the elk and deer herds.
Okay, thank you.
But by doing nothing, we would be reducing their forage. So that's one of our primary drivers.
And as you spray, you're not just doing a flyover, you're actually targeting the weed.
We are using backpack sprayers, similar to the horses. They do not allow us to bring in anything that is not on foot. So we can't bring an ATV sprayer out. We can't pull a cart behind us. Everything has to be done on foot. And so we have to bring backpack sprayers out, and it's a very targeted spray. So we are only treating the weeds that need to be treated and allowing the native species to exist.
I see Jennifer, I see in a chat, consequences for non-compliance. How do we handle people that just completely refuse to help?
We have a couple of options within the noxious weed law. Generally, we try really hard to focus on education within our program and try to work with the landowners without going into our enforcement abilities, because we like to manage our landowner relationships and stay on a landowner's good side, because they're more likely to respond if we are all being civil with each other. With that said, the consequences that the weed laws make available to us include the ability for us to issue a civil infraction, very similar to a parking ticket. There is a structure for fees that can be assessed with a civil infraction based on the weed species and the number of previous offenses. And secondarily, we can also do in combination with or separately, perform the enforcement or the control work ourselves or hire a contractor to do so at the expense of the landowner. So we have to follow a series of notifications for that to happen. And it's not the ideal process, but it's available to us and sometimes it needs to be done. And so when that happens, we control the weeds and bill the landowner for the expense. If they don't pay it, it becomes a lien on their property.
Okay, thank you. Any
So
other-
how often in the past 12 months has something like that action been taken?
We almost got to that action one time in the last 12 months. We were getting ready to organize ourselves to go out there and do the work when the landowner finally responded. I think it was a situation where the notifications were getting sent to the wrong place due to a death in the family. So we tried really hard to track down the right person, put up notices on the property, and at that point they were able to respond. So.
Okay. Any other? I see no hands. We have a motion on the table to approve item 6 and 7 together. So I would call for a vote. In
Aye.
favor? I also vote aye. Thank you for your time, Jennifer. That was helpful and informative.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, before we
Yeah.
start in the citizens' comments, I need to let you know that I have to leave at 11:45. I represent the State Association on the State Executive Interoperability Committee. That's an agency that attempts to make sure that public safety communications are, can talk to each other.
Yeah.
And they've been working on a draft policy last year. They meet quarterly and they didn't have a quorum for the first quarter meeting. They made a phone call. For some reason, they chose Tuesday mornings to have their meetings at 10 o'clock. So I do need to take a break for that.
Absolutely. Right before we get into citizens' comments, I thought I'd update you on a couple things that were brought up last week. I think it's important if you bring stuff up and we're able to give you an answer back that we do that. So we had a couple questions last week. One was about setting a policy for correspondence that leaves the commissioner office. And what I did, we don't really have a policy, but what I did is put a directive to staff that any correspondence that leaves the commissioner's office that contains just the chairman's signature has to be reviewed and acknowledged by the other two commissioners before it ever goes. And to emphasize that, I said, if the city's burning to the ground, they still need to look at it and acknowledge it before it goes. So I did put that directive in place. I'm more inclined to I don't have any ego that I have to sign something by myself, that hopefully most things we can have 3 signatures on there and send them out, because we do things as a 3-person board. We don't do things as an individual. We have different interests, but we still do things as a 3-person board. Another issue that came up last week, we heard about person on property that had put houses on it, like 70 years ago, and it's all on one lot. And we have some rules in place on how you address these places to avoid situations where things aren't sequential and things that are front and back and those type of things. So we asked, and this was not the case in this particular property. So we asked Building and Planning to take another look at that, and they looked at it and said, yeah, the stuff we have in place, this isn't part of what causes the problem. So we were able to get that fixed. I've had a couple times where we've been asked, how come building and planning does not take how come engineered plans from a design firm that follows all the rules just doesn't get a stamp of approval? And what we have in this county, what I've learned is over the years, we've instituted some overlays. So what building and planning is going to do, and we have an advisory committee for building and planning. It meets once a month. And their job is to look at things, and if things need to be adjusted, do they still make sense? Those type of things. So we're gonna look at that in that committee and just review those overlays and make sure they still make sense, or is it just something we can move aside or we can adjust and try to get closer to when we get an engineer plan that we're quicker to give you that stamp. And the last thing that came up, we had a lot of conversation on the public facilities district, people trying to understand that. Brian Magson sits on that. I'm the liaison to that. So I know a little bit about it, and he was nice enough. And I think we had some copies put out there that he's kind of giving us what they do, some history and some of the financial information on it. So you're able to see that and look that over. And I don't want to put him on the spot, but I know he's a very open person. If you had questions on that, he would be more than happy to talk with you about it. Okay. With that, I'll open up public comments.
So is this public comments just on whatever we want to talk about?
Yep.
Okay. So I just came to introduce myself again. I'm Connie Cruz and I'm Administrative Director of Kai Rivers Recovery Cafe. And we have recently opened a cafe in Kelso, June 30th of 2022. Our mission statement is Kai Rivers Recovery Cafe is a nonprofit organization created to help people who are struggling with addiction, mental health, and homelessness, to create safe and stable environments for men, women, and children, and to teach life skills, to clean up neighborhoods and homeless camps in the surrounding areas. So I wanted to let you know that it's going very well. And we're growing and being able to reach people in the community. Our plan is to make the biggest impact on Cowlitz County that we can, to heal the county in any way that we can. I brought some paperwork to give to you guys on some of the numbers that we've calculated over the last since November of 22 to March 23, just so you could see what's going on. And that's pretty much it. Do you have any questions? No. And can I bring up proof?
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, I will have some questions also, but I'll hold off until you get back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Your facility just nearby, you're a block and a half away or something like that. How do you sustain yourself?
So the Washington Healthcare Authority has given a 3-year grant to help us open the cafe. So that's been really helpful. And we have a few other partners. Peace Health has partnered with us. And yeah, and we're also a part of a network of cafes. There's 57 cafes in the United States and Canada. So we're having a nationwide impact.
Okay, cafe is probably a reasonable entry to description. I've been to your cafe and I've been to the one in Vancouver also. And one of the things I typically hear is a struggle, and I know it's a struggle, is I've gone through the system, but I go back to the environment that got me into trouble before. And so I look at your facility as more or less a Boys and Girls Club for adults. And And I think what I like about that also is you've got a set of obligations that if I am going to use the cafe, I've got to abide by constructive obligations. And if not, you will just ask me to leave. So it is trying to change the environment that got people into trouble. I don't think it's trying to do anything else. We've got enough other agencies that are trying to cure you, but anyhow, I think I probably said enough. Maybe others have questions.
Yeah, so it's a membership and there's 3 requirements to be a member: be sober for 24 hours, join a weekly circle, and give back. And we're also known as a school of recovery. So we're helping people walk out their recovery, and it's all forms of recovery, not just addiction to chemicals and drugs and alcohol. It can be any type of recovery. And we're a neutral ground. So it's not based on any religion. So everybody's welcome. So
Have a good.
is that it?
Thank you
Thank you.
for coming by.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Hi, guys. I'll just make this real quick. You guys were very, very generous and understanding when you funded the Meals on Wheels. But there was a question of quality. And I know that Vader or Riderwood had been served frozen dinners, which is not acceptable. And I was wondering if we have a report back from CAP on the quality of the meals that they're going to provide for Meals on Wheels. Because I'd be interested.
Yeah, I can, what I can tell you is I have met with them. And I know they do go out there and do one hot meal a week. They do that in Castle Rock also. They are open to working with some other entities like the school district and researching that type of thing to get opportunities more local. They're open to church involvement. So they are open to stuff. I think, you know, you get into a routine where you've just been doing it this way for so long that you sometimes have to push a little bit to ask them to do other things. And we sit down and chat with them for probably about an hour. And when that comes up again, I'm trying to convince her to come and talk. I promised her I'd monitor and make sure nobody yells at him, but
We
I
wouldn't
think,
yell at her.
you know, we hear from Gina and she tries to cover all that stuff, but it's impossible for her to know everything. So I really like to hear from the people themselves. And I think the gal has some good information, and I know she's willing to address some of that, but I think we have to keep asking the questions. Yeah.
That would be very nice. Like I said, we really appreciated the fact that you guys backed Meal on Wheels. And that was a very generous thing to do, not knowing the quality because there was question on the quality. And but we just like to have a follow-up on what they are doing for it. Thank you.
Mhm. Anything else? I don't see anything coming online. Oh, there's hand up, Vicky.
Yes. I just wanted to report that I had a friend who was receiving the Meals on Wheels before she passed away, and what she was getting was like a smart ones that were from the grocery store. However, I'm an Altrusan and I deliver backpack buddies every week. And last week when I was there, or 2 weeks ago when I was there, I saw the meals going out and they were not that. They were a meal that was prepared with a starch and a vegetable and protein. And it looked much better than any smart ones that I've bought to eat for myself. Just want to report that. I did also meet that Sunday. I met the director of Meals on Wheels in King County, and they don't prepare it themselves. They partner with other people. So maybe it could be something like you said that we can do on the next contract.
Yeah. Well, Yeah, I appreciate that. They're open to that. Sometimes we as the public don't do a good job of stepping up either. So, you know, it's sometimes it's on our side also. We can ask that they help, but then we have to be willing to help, right? It's a
Yes.
two-way street. So, but I appreciate the comments on that, Vicky. Thank you. Anything else? I don't see any other hands. Commissioner, you have anything you want to add before we close this thing?
No, I wondered they're taking a risk of stepping a little out of bounds. If Brian was interested in maybe going through some of the history, that would be fine. We seem to have the time. I'd leave that up to the public if they want to learn more about the PDA.
You okay with that? Brian? Come up. Sure, please. Thank you for that.
So I got involved in the late 90s, 98, and it was through the Economic Development Council. And at that time, we were aware that you could form a PFD in our community, and the 48 acres at the fairgrounds, it's always called the fairgrounds as long as I've been around. It was always one of those things that I thought was underutilized. So we have our fair 5 days a year, which is really important to have. And I was trying to think of what could we do there that would be something that we could improve that area. So that's kind of how it got started. I'll look at my timeline here, but it was in 99 when the commissioners at that time, it was Jeff Rasmussen, George Rader, and Bill Lenning were the ones who formed it. Then there were 5 of us who joined through a process on March 20th of 2002. And then later that year, it was expanded to 7. It was something the state had allowed us to do. And then the rules around the PFD is that for the 0.033 tax, so how it works is we pay for our 8% that we pay, 0.033 of that comes back to the PFD, and it will do that for 25 years. That started in 2002, so it'll sunset in 2027. We started the construction in 2003 of the conference center. J.H. Kelly did that work, and we finished it on time, actually a little faster on October 30th of 2004. And we had our grand opening in 05 in March. And in 2010, we did a master plan on the entire 48 acres to try and understand what it is that we could do besides the conference center. And so what came out of that was and that was funded by 4 groups. It was the PFD, the Cowlitz County, City of Longview, and City of Kelso. And it was showing that one of the things, like for instance, week before last, Kim Bocut at the conference center had been planning for 1 month with the Department of Natural Resources to have their statewide conference here at the conference center. And they were going to do a 1-day conference. And that 1 day was going to be a long day, a 12-hour day. And then eventually what happened was the DNR decided they wanted to make it a 2-day conference. And when they did that, it put us out of the running. And the reason is because we don't have a hotel attached. So one of the things that we really need to have is a hotel to be able to gather these types of events. We ended up losing that to Vancouver. But the master plan was for the sports, the equestrian, and the hotel. And so now we feel we're pretty confident, but we don't know for sure yet until May 26th as to the people who have stepped up to build their hotel. It would it would be a big boost for us. And so now our goal is to, we have another 15 years that have been added. I hope I'm making sense here. We have another 15 years that have been added by the state for the 0.033 money. And so we haven't exercised that yet through a bond. And so this next master plan, the update that we're doing now is to try and understand. We find that a lot of, like if you're thinking of sports or equestrian, it doesn't matter. A lot of parents leave Cowlitz County and they go to Centralia to the hub, or they go to Vancouver to soccer events, or to Portland and places like that. And we lose opportunity. We barely have any artificial turf here in this town. And so what we're trying to understand is what could we do here in Cowlitz County that would keep parents and kids here, and also, but mainly bring other parents and kids from other communities to spend money in Cowlitz County and to stay here. Heads and beds, that's what we like to call it. So that's our goal moving forward this year, is to try and understand what the opportunities would be for us to have what I would consider a destination of Cowlitz County for whether it's equestrian or sports, or maybe out of this study, something else entirely comes up. But the idea is to be able to make the 48 acres so that it's something that can be used on a much more regular basis.
Yeah. You know, I told you I'm the liaison from the board to that, and I've been over 3 or 4, I think, meetings and got a chance to know the people on that. And you spend a little bit of time with them and you understand that their focus is really on our community. They really, you know, when I say community, I'm talking about countywide community. They want this to be a better place to be, and they want it. And they feel, and I agree with them, that we can be a hub for activities coming in. You know, I think you just don't always need to grow your space, but to bring people in, and as Brian says, heads and beds, have the events. They drop money here and support our economy, but we don't support them other ways. So they go back to the other place. I think that needs to be a part of it. And I think they work real hard to get there.
Yeah, and this, all boats rise in this type of setting. So all hotels in Cowlitz County and restaurants, and I mean, it's a big deal. Tourism and sports are a big part of economic driver. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'd like to add to what you
Go
just
ahead.
said, Mr. Chairman, that actually it's a funny thing that's hard to describe, but when you have a sense of community, you feel it, and it impacts everything in the community. And I think your intent in this is to have a good sense of community where you have pride, and you can start that by these activities that you're aiming for. I do have other questions, but I can hold them off until well, I'll go ahead and ask them. And
Yeah, you're fine.
so there was a citizen for a couple of meetings that was hammering pretty hard at the concept that there was no need for a hotel because there were hotels clearly nearby, and that this was going to compete against the neighboring hotels. How would you address that?
Yeah, so what we're doing is we're losing these opportunities. So one of the things I've asked Kim and the staff to do is what I call missed opportunities. So what we do is, as we take calls at the conference center about people who are interested in having a conference here, if we don't land it, we try and circle back around to find out why that is. And the number one reason is we don't have a hotel attached. That's the number one reason. It's just like the story I told you about the DNR. When they decided to go to a 2-day event, they weren't interested because they wanted to have a hotel, and they don't want a hotel 2 blocks away. They want a hotel attached. As a matter of fact, most hotels are, if they don't have it's either attached or have a walkway. And it's because people in all-day events at a conference, they like to go back and forth to their room and take breaks and such, and it just makes for a much broader group of people that we can attract. And
Yeah, that's the viewpoint, from one side. If I were a hotelier in town, how would I feel about this? Is it really gonna hurt me?
all boats rise. That's what I say. So what the two things that I think could happen here is, number one is that the events, this hotel, they're planning on 88 rooms, and it would be 4 stories. The thing about it is that when you have large events, something that's in the neighborhood of 1,500 or 2,000 folks, there just isn't, you'll fill up every hotel in town. That's the idea. What you might end up with is the folks that find it real necessary to have a hotel connected. They would be the ones that would book those rooms. And the others would have to go to hotels nearby. So I say all boats rise because I think everybody is a winner here. And the other thing it does, I believe, and is that when you build a new hotel in your community, it kind of ups the ante a little bit on the rest of the folks. I always find competition is good. It sharpens pencils. So, maybe there'd be some improvements and other things that would take place in our community.
Yeah, my intuition says you're spot on, but my intuition doesn't buy anything for the local hotel people. So it's good just to let people understand the big picture. So I appreciate that. And then there are 48 acres, and in the master plan, I guess I have a hard time figuring out how we fit all these good things in that 48 acres and still maintain the fairgrounds, if you will.
Yeah, the fair is really important to us. We in no way want to reduce or change that. I mean, what I mean change, so the conference center, as it's been for 20 years, has really enhanced the ability. If you were to look at pictures back in the late 90s, where the conference center is now was a bunch of old wood buildings, kind of like where the 4-H, how they look today. And so, and we shut down, by the way, the conference center shuts down in July, or the end of July, August for the fair. So it really takes us out of the equation for a good 3 weeks or so. And the conference center is then part of the fair, which really enhances the quality of the indoor events that you can have there. We'd like to continue that. So let's just say, for example, you built a sports complex that was an indoor complex, and you did it so that it was a multi-purpose. This is just one idea. So now you have a sports venue that you could have large wrestling tournaments one weekend. You could have an indoor, this would be pretty decent size. You'd have maybe 7 basketball courts. You could have 5 or 6 tennis courts. You could have it to where it would change up. So then the same would go true with the fair. So when the fair was going on, that would go to be used for the fair. So you could imagine some of the things that you could do when the fair was going, using that multi-purpose area indoors.
And we've been asked to fund, and we've helped support several facilities. There are 3 of them, right? Scott Hill Park, Rister Field, or that whole Tam O'Shanter area, and what's the one in Longview that my mind's Swiss cheese?
Which, you mean like the 7th Avenue soccer or softball?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just can't remember. Anyhow, the question is, how many of these sports complexes do we need? It sounds like there's opportunity for a different kind of sports complex. Like on the East Coast, I know there are a lot of times they have indoor tennis, indoor soccer, indoor volleyball, indoor badminton, those kinds of things. Is that the kind of thing that's been talked about?
Yeah, so the main thrust of the group that we're hired to do this is first to understand what the landscape is like. So they will go for a certain number of miles south and north, east and west, and determine what is in place currently. So like I mentioned, the Centralia, the hub is called. You go south and there's a lot of different venues in Portland, Vancouver area. So what is it that would be attractive to build here? What would be our niche? You know, I said sports, it could be equestrian. Equestrian also has its followings. We've been to other conference centers where they have large equestrian shows. They'll have like half of the weekends a year filled with people, and they bring their RVs and the horse trailers, and it's a big deal. So, and then in the times when they don't have horses, they're doing go-kart events. And I mean, you know, it's just really interesting, all the different motocross and.
Yeah, I think what I guess I'm suggesting is a coordination, and that we're, as community, the community is investing in Scott Hill Park and Tam O'Shanter Park and the unnamed, but the one in Longview. And it would probably seem strange to have them all duplicate each other.
Maybe you're thinking of the Mint Valley Racquetball Complex that does tennis?
I have so totally blanked on that I apologize. Just even assume the two, Scott Hill and Tam O'Shanter. Scott Hill is in partial development. Their plans are huge. The arguments for both is always the same thing. We want to bring the tournaments in. We want to have multi-day events, and sounds at the high level what you're describing. So I think if we aren't careful, we're going to compete against each other in a non-positive way. I imagine. I don't know.
Well, so the city of Longview has joined us in this master planning because they will also want to understand what the opportunities are for our community. So, and we've asked Kelso as well, and we do not want to compete in a way that would hurt everybody or anybody. We'd like to be able to make it so that we are, again, I like to think of it as all boats rise. You know, so let's say you had a tournament, maybe you need more baseball fields, or, you know, I don't know that yet. I'm speaking, I got you in front of but the master plan, this study that is done that takes into account everything. It's kind of doing an inventory of all the things that are available within a certain mile, and then try and determine what it is that is necessary, or not necessary, but what it is that we could best, you know, it's kind of crazy. There's things you think about cornhole, you would never think that would be a big deal, but, and maybe it's like a hula hoop, maybe in 5 years it'll be away, but cornhole is a big deal. They have big tournaments for that. And so if you have a multi-purpose facility, then you have the ability to tear down and rebuild to do different events week in, week out.
So I'm glad you said that the 0.033 would be extended. So we're looking at 37 plus 5. We're looking at probably past my lifetime. But anyhow, what was the overall maintenance plan in mind? That it would pay for itself? It would always require subsidy?
You mean after the 15 years, let's say, is that what you're thinking?
Yeah, because you weren't assured you'd get that extension. So I'm saying you must have had a plan, and how are you going to keep this alive?
Yeah, the idea would be that it's really important that it can sustain itself. So it has to, so the idea is the 15-year extension for the bond would pay for the capital, and then what we build would sustain itself year after year. It's important that we design something that it would stand on its own. It should not be subsidized. The
You're pretty
conference center,
confident about being able to do that?
yeah, so the conference center that we have built over the last 20 years, we have set aside capital improvement funds. We've maintained it quite well. We're just getting ready to do a refresh on restrooms, walls, paint, things like that. And we've been very frugal at making sure that we keep certain percentages. Actually, it's in the interlocal agreement we have to be able to have those funds available to us when we need to. But that has, you'll see through Kim's data sheet there that, you know, we have year after year done real well there.
You got a hand up?
Yeah.
Lynn?
Hello.
Yes?
It wasn't concerning this subject at all. It's a different matter.
Okay.
So if I might ask the question on your master planning and putting all this together.
Make sure you speak into the microphone a bit better.
We all believe in the private enterprise involvement as much as possible in carrying a burden. So this master plan with the hotel, motel, whatever, a lot of us ask, well, why is that not a private enterprise interest in investment and partnership? Because then they have a vested interest in the success of that also and sponsoring it.
If I understand, so the hotel itself is being built by a developer. It's not being funded by any state or county monies. It's going to be a Hampton it's been franchised as a Hampton. It's 88 rooms. That's the design currently. And, but again, we won't know until May 26th. So on May 26th, that's when he's had a 60-day extension to do his due diligence. I don't know how much more I can say on that. I don't want to.
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, we're pretty excited about that. It's, and that takes up 1.8 acres, by the way, of the conference center out of the 48.
So to continue to answer his question, say this hypothetical sports complex, you would look at as being operated by the Parks and Recreation, or would you look at it as being like the hotel where it was put out for bid and you got respondents and they're going to operate it and they have to sink or swim on their own?
Yeah, good question. So Centralia, their PFD, when they built the hub, it originally, they tried to run it on their own and then they got a private company. And actually that private company, if I understand it correctly, they paid $500,000 for the opportunity to run that. And they're still running it today. And I want to say the hub's been around for maybe 5 years. Seems like it's about that long, but
yeah.
But yeah, I don't think I'd hate to say this, but I don't think the PFD would be the right. I mean, we're not in the business of running things. We're kind of the facility, we're the back end facilitators trying to get something built so that somebody that does, and in fact, the other thing we haven't talked about yet either is, so this 15-year extension would support somewhere in the neighborhood of a $10 million bond that could be paid off in 15 years. That really doesn't build much of a if you were talking about a multi-purpose sports complex. I mean, it wouldn't build much. I mean, it's really amazing. 20 years ago, $10 million, I don't know, it doesn't seem so much anymore.
Yeah.
So a public-private partnership would be nice, you know.
Was that
somebody-
$1 million or $1 billion? Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, the billion, I think we'd be in good shape, but yeah, having a public-private, you know, there's also different, like for instance, in Spokane, there was a facility that was just built last year. It was called the Podium. And it's a much larger than we could ever support to build, but what a beautiful complex. And they have every weekend that thing's busy.
I looked it up just to see it, yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive.
Yeah. Marcia, did you have a question too? You can use that mic, sure.
This is really exciting to hear. I'm really happy that you're, proposing this. I think it would be great for our county. I live over by the Kelso High School, and the amount of people that area draws in for sports for the kids and for the neighborhood, it's always packed. My question is, I've driven by the fairgrounds, and ever since I heard there was a hotel maybe going to go in there, I thought, yeah, I can easily see a hotel fitting in there. And what you're talking about would draw a lot of people. So is there going to be enough parking for all these people? Because that's usually the issue, is parking. Like even with the fairgrounds, there's people parking in all those neighborhoods. And so I'm just wondering, could you address that?
Yeah, there was one thing we have thought about at one point would be to have some transportation and partner with like the mall or malls and move people back and forth that way. It is challenging because right now the west side of 7th Avenue is used for parking during the fair. So, and one of the things we're also looking at is the commissioners have approved over the next couple of years, we want to add some RV parking on the grounds with full hookup. So I don't know if you realize this, but the conference center, the fairgrounds extends all the way over to Peardale. And so that area right in there, there's a little piece of ground that's a place where a lot of the folks that are equestrian folks park their RVs and things. So that's going to get it improved on as a kind of a full hookup RV situation. But then parking is just at a premium, and about the only way you could probably, as it gets busier and busier, would have to be some type of transportation.
Thank you.
You bet.
Brian, is all of this land county land, or is there any Longview land involved in any of this?
Yeah, so the entire 48 acres was county land, and then 1.8 acres was taken and carved out. And that 1.8 acres is just east of the conference center. So it starts at the edge of the blacktop where the kiosks are, those two food kiosks. And it goes towards the jail, and the entrance we're planning on is coming in off of 5th. And so that 1.8 acres has been removed, and that's what the Longview Public Development Authority would sell to the folks to build the hotel.
Okay, is there any kind of a timeline or anything involved here, and how any of these things have to happen?
Yep, so there is a timeline. So May 26th, the folks that are the developers have to give us a yes or a no. They have earnest money down. And then after that, they have until 2026 to build the hotel and occupy it. And if they don't, the property goes back to the county.
Okay, that's the 1.6 or 1.8 acres. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Okay. One thing we don't want to lose our local charm. About 15 years ago, I was very involved in my granddaughter playing soccer. And we would go to Seattle, and all of those kids up there with their $200 soccer suits and running around on AstroTurf. I remember very distinctly a championship game played over at I think it was on the park right next to St. Rose. And it was a championship game, this kind of time of the year, sloppy weather and everything else. And a Seattle team came down here, and it was really a lot of fun to watch them slipping and falling in the pigeon dew
along with our Cowlitz County girls, and we managed to win. So we don't want to lose our local charm.
Thanks, Larry.
I feel so important being at the staff table. So my question is, how will the addition of a new amenity of a hotel affect access to like the meeting rooms in the event center for local people, like in terms of rental cost? Because like anytime you improve property, add amenities, you add a pool, you add a hot tub, every time you do that, like the cost of just simply renting a meeting room, sometimes like that can increase and kind of make things a little bit more inaccessible for local people. So how might that affect like me renting a meeting room at the event center?
It shouldn't change that at all. We have had an increase in cost of the rental fees. It was several years back, but the hotel wouldn't affect that at all. The hotel is a standalone. They have to make money, or they're a standalone entity. Now, they might also have breakout rooms in the design of this hotel. One of the things that we looked at quite a few years back was the conference center also lacks breakout rooms. And we have 3 currently. And sometimes all 3 of those are full. And so we have to take one of the larger rooms and break it down into, we have these folding walls that we can move around. And as a matter of fact, we have 2 walls that we haven't put in that we're thinking about doing on this next capital improvement. And to make it so you can divide it up into 4 rooms instead of 2. But yeah, no, I don't see that affecting the cost. It would be 2 separate things.
Okay. And then another question is, would any local groups or clubs have to relocate their activities off-site in order for a hotel to be installed?
Not that I know of. So there's if this goes through, if the hotel goes through, there'd be 2 kiosks that would be taken down of the 3. So, and they're in pretty bad shape. From what I understand, there's kiosk 1, kiosk 2, kiosk 3. Kiosk 3 would be the furthest to the south. That kiosk would stay. And there is 2 folks that during the fair use kiosk 2, and they would be moved to kiosk 3.
Okay. So I've actually had the pleasure of renting one of the meeting rooms in the event center. That's going to happen in a couple of weeks, and that's been going really well. The staff is really helpful and friendly and very knowledgeable. You mentioned you might have some capital improvements or maintenance or things that you'll be working on in the future. I do actually have one suggestion that you might consider. So I did drop my check off for my deposit to secure my reservation for the meeting room. And the way you do that is a little bit funny, but I understand why. It's like safety and security is great. So like I had to go to the event center and make a phone call. And then somebody, if they answered the phone, could come to the door, and then I can give them my check and my contract. And I just wonder if maybe you guys could install one of those cool like Ring camera things, that, you know, like a doorbell could go into the office, because I know there was another couple there that wanted to talk to the staff or whatever, but I guess they didn't read the sign or know that they should call, so they just kind of left. So anyway, just more accessibility by really easy methods.
And that's a
And
good.
the staff might like that. They might not like it. I don't know. Talk to them. But it's just idea.
So a little bit of history there. So when the homeless became a larger and larger problem, we had them in the equestrian building for quite a while, and it was really hard to oversee that and to keep track of it. And then when they found out that we had restrooms, then they started to come in and use the restrooms. And it wasn't that they just would use the restrooms and leave, but they would come in and take showers in the sinks and things. And the girls to work there, we were really concerned about their safety. And so that's why the door locking, but I know you.
I could imagine why you have the policy without you even explaining that. So like, I'm cool with the policy. I'm just making a suggestion that if you're gonna be upgrading the bathrooms, maybe the staff might like to also have the camera and a doorbell feature, and maybe the community would too, just as an added layer of, if I forgot my cell phone or battery's dead, then people can drop off their contracts, just maybe a little bit easier, just an added layer. I understand why you do it. I don't have a problem with it.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And I'll bring that up with Kim. She's probably watching actually, but.
She's
right
actually in
there.
the room. You
Oh,
might
is
talk
she?
to her. Her,
Oh, there
her-
she is. Oh,
Yeah.
bring her up here. You
All
get
right.
up here.
Anyway, thanks.
Okay,
Maybe they don't want that. Like, leave us alone.
No, that's not at
Other-
all the case, but
other questions on the facility district? Yeah. Go ahead.
I love this idea and I like all the questions that are being asked. As an avid conference goer, I would just like to tell you that if people are coming to a conference, they're coming to a conference because they want to come. I imagine that's why I go. And I have been to conferences where in Portland where the hotels were full from Salem to, I believe, Kalama. So that answers that question. The hotels will fill up. The food, people, they'll probably have food. There will, I imagine, vendors inside, but I generally, if I want to go for lunch or dinner, I go outside into the community to eat. And as far as travel's concerned, or Portland, for an example, has the MAX, so you can hop on that. I don't see any reason why you couldn't fix that transportation to go to the mall. That would be great. But the other thing is, there's also I can't remember the name of the event center, but in Las Vegas, the traffic or the transportation is ridiculously horrible and nobody cares. You know, I mean, you have to be out there, the cabs come in and you can't even find your cab. They are totally disorganized and awful, but I still like to go and I'll still go. And so we have Uber drivers. We have, I think a lot of these things, it doesn't have to be perfect. The things will work themselves out. But I think it's a fabulous idea, and I think it would be very profitable for many, many different aspects in our community.
thank you. Oh, okay.
I'm a big believer in economic development, and I'm telling you, this kind of thing, you build it and they will come. You said it very clearly that people are not following through on contracts if they're multiple days because they feel there needs to be a better hotel or housing situation. You've got a solution going, that's perfect. You know, if we totally understood the economic benefit of dollars brought into our county, as opposed to what, you know, not having those, is a multiple effect. That effect is in the neighborhood of 7 times. So $1 brought into the county from outside is like bringing in $7 because of how they spend. That's the effect of bringing people in. I think you're right. Sporting events is a big thing because kids do belong to these teams that travel all over. We need to have something more than just the outside facilities because of the weather that we have. It would allow us to be a little more year-round kind of a thing. So I think you're right on the money with that. But I've also found you don't not include those people that are here or the organizations or the fields that are already in play because it all comes together. It's about finding that entity that will drive all this kind of thing and keep all those balls in the air in the proper order. I just applaud you. I think we've got a great facility here and you're getting people who have interest, but we need to make it more attractive. It's not about what we don't have to worry about everybody else's, how it affects them, because it would be positive for all those motel owners to have a competitive motel in there. It brings more people to the community because their 88 rooms will not be enough to handle a large convention that would be placed there. So they will all benefit from that. So I think it's a win-win for those few times we can have a win-win situation. I appreciate your years of involvement in that organization. That's pretty exciting, and you're to be commended on that. I think you're doing it systematically. I think you're understanding some of the limitations. I don't see that 1.8 acres out of 48 acres to set aside to build a hotel that would allow you to attract more people to bring their dollars into our community to benefit all of us that live within the county. That's a good thing. You know, I don't think we can lose from that. So I'm for you to keep moving forward, and whatever help the county can give or whatever help I can give, I'd be willing to do that too. Thanks.
I appreciate those comments. I also think of when you had mentioned other sporting events that are going on in our community and those places. The thing I hope is, as we move through this process, that we keep everything in mind. And I've always learned that if everybody's in the boat together, all rowing the same direction, you can get there a lot faster. So I'm hoping that we keep that in mind as we move through this master plan process.
Hi, my name is Lorna Stewart. I'm on the executive board of Cowlitz Youth Soccer Association. And I actually just yesterday talked to Norm Crable, is that his last name?
Yeah.
About beginning to partner with you guys in the sports facility, if that actually happens. As much as I love the local charm of playing in the mud and how I grew up, we lose tournaments every year who will not come to Cowlitz County because we don't have turf fields and we don't have a good hotel facility to host them. So we would love to partner with you guys and work together to bring those tournaments in to, to the facility and utilize it, because there's definitely a need out there. There's some great ones in the Vancouver area. There's some in the Seattle area, and we kind of are this abyss here where we'd love to host tournaments and we have the population to do it. We just don't have the facilities to do it in. So.
Agreed. Thank you.
Yeah. So.
Personally, I hope you keep the mud and the grass. If the facility gets built. Help me a little bit with, I'm looking at this printout for the revenue. And if I just come up to recently, looking at February 2021, 14 days usage, you got $12,600 worth of income. February 2022, you got 18 days, which is 4 more days. And you got a little less than $5,000. So you got more time spent, but a third, well, a little over half of the, less than half of the income. And then you come to 2023, you got a full week more of usage, 25 days of usage, and only $4,000, $4,600 worth of income. So
I don't know
have
if
no idea, obviously.
that might be a better question for Kim.
Right.
I'm not
Obviously,
sure.
days of usage don't equate to dollars of income.
Yeah. Kim would better answer that.
I don't have that report in front of me, so let me grab what you're.
It's the same one you gave.
Is it
Yeah.
So let me catch up. So this is the Expo Center rental revenue and event days. Is that?
Well, whatever this is reflecting on, it says the Expo Center rental revenues and event days on the back of the sheet. Yeah.
Okay. The report in front of you is actually, so looking at 2023, the $3,860 with 23 event days, are we on the same report?
I was looking at February, the 4658.
Okay.
25 days of event days, it says.
So Those, so this report is actually showing the breakdown of events outside the conference center. These are not conference center events. So this report is kind of to reflect the outside rental. So in February of 2023, we did $4,658 in revenue, and that is in all buildings or areas outside of the Cowlitz Regional Conference Center. So there was 25 event days outside. So it might have been horse shows, dog shows, cat shows, or not cat shows are inside, but anybody that used a barn or the floral building, but not the event center. And then if you look down below where it says CRCC revenue and event days. So for 2023 to date, which is January and February, there was 122,000 in revenue with 28 event days. And what this report is showing that at the entire event center, 2023 year to date without March, we've produced 130,000 in revenue and 76 event days.
Okay.
There is mud.
So I guess I don't see you trying to address my question.
I apologize. What was your question?
Well, let's just look at February of 2022 compared to February 2023.
Okay.
There's 25 event days in 2023 and only $4,658 worth of income compared to February 2022, 18 days, a full week less of event days and $4,965 worth of income.
Right. So every area has a different rental rate. So as an example, a barn might rent for $75. The indoor arena rents for $325. So every event does not pay the same amount of money. It depends on the event and the space that they've used. So if you come and rent, you don't rent the fairgrounds, you come and rent the indoor arena, then you would pay $325 per day, which would be, over 2 days would be $650. But if you came in and had an event in a barn, you would rent that barn for $75. So therefore the same 2 days would produce $150 of rental.
Okay. So I guess looking at the increase from, as this is still stepping up of 2021, you got $120,000 worth of income in August versus 300,000 last year in August. Do you anticipate those types of increases or those types of usage fees coming in over the course of how much time? I mean, if it's going to continue at this rate, that amount of income coming back to the fairgrounds, correct? Good.
Yes, this is for facility use at the fairgrounds.
And this is not including
It's not including the conference center.
The conference center, thank you.
Correct. So looking at 2022 as an example, for the entire year of 2022, the expo center outside, everything outside of the conference center produced $385,000 in event revenue for 266 event days. The conference center inside produced $1.1 million of revenue for 207 event days. And the entire facility, the entire 48 acres produced $1.4 million, 473 total event days.
Okay.
I think we had talked about the confusion of the term event days.
Event days, correct.
I think this illustrates why I had some
Right.
trouble with it. Okay.
So event days is the metric. So if a cat show comes in and rents the facility for 2 days, simultaneously we have a horse show renting the same, the arena for 2 days, at the same time the cat show is going on. So in 2 days, then we would count that as 4 event days because each event has a specific number of days. It is confusing, but that's our metric that we report.
Yeah, I'm strongly suggesting you rethink what is the proper metric. Event days don't really mean anything except they lead to a long discussion of confusion.
I caught up to it. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Boy, I want to, and I'm going to, Lynn, you're next year. I just want to thank Brian for coming in and answering some of those questions because a lot of that come up. I think it's important we bring those in. I'm going to pick on Marcia because we're going to bring Mediation Center in because we've started to hear a lot about that and they'll tell us about their their operation and stuff. So we'll try and do that. And Lynn? go ahead.
If I could, I agree with Brian, thank you. To me, this interaction the past 3/4 of an hour or so was music to my ears. This is a good, proper discussion for the people to be involved in, and I thoroughly appreciate your indulgence there too also.
Okay. Thank you. Lynn, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Am I on?
You are.
I understand that our hospice center has been purchased by a Vancouver firm. Is that correct? Does anyone know?
They have been purchased. There might be somebody in the audience that knows.
Yeah, I don't know that.
Yeah, it's under new ownership, and there has been a discussion about the future, but I don't know what the future is there.
Well, I heard there was talk that they would continue to have a hospice center there. But now it's changed. Does anyone know their plans?
I heard the plans up to the point you said that they had intended to continue to operate it here, but you have the latest information from around
I
us.
don't.
Does the county or anyone have any leverage in keeping that sort of facility open?
I can tell you from my part, it's a good facility. I'd have to look at the entire picture, but I'm very confident it's been a very successful facility as far as the clientele feels. Is Gina James on? Maybe she knows a little more than we do.
I just know it's been vital service to our community for such a long time.
Yeah,
And in all these years, I've never heard one negative comment.
Agreed.
Many
completely.
families have been served,
Yeah.
and it's all been good.
I don't disagree with that comment. I think that's a great service for our area. I've been there myself when my wife was going through the end, so I think it's a vital area. Do we have control over where it stays or goes? I don't know how much influence we have other than just say, we'd love to have you stay, but I have her written down and make sure I have a couple people I can reach out to and try and get a little more knowledge on that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, how could, maybe Lynn should drop you an email so you know how to contact her specifically?
Yeah, Lynn, that'd be perfect if you want to drop an email to commissioners or to me personally. Either which way. I used to work with a gentleman that sit on that board, so I'll chat with him and try to get a little more up to date and what's really going on.
Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm. Anybody else? I don't see any hands. 1:30 today. We will be meeting and going over some things. One of the things coming up, because there was a lot of questions on this, and so we asked risk management, the train track that they're talking about, trails that we beat to a dead horse the last couple of deals. A lot of the concerns about it was risk, and so we've asked the question, what would be the risk? I mean, to me, it's the number one question. If the risk is too high, then why would you even want to get involved with it? But we may have some insight and answers on that. So if you tune in at the 1:30 meeting, I know that's been a concern of some people, and we're trying to address that. It's a concern of ours, and we're trying to get it addressed too. So that'll be part of the 1:30 meeting.
And we've got the opening at 11. How many respondents do we have for that?
They have until 11 to drop them off, so I wouldn't be able to answer that.
So you'll be doing the opening though, right?
That is correct, at 11 a.m. today.
Okay. Thank you.
Steve?
Oh, so I'm going to anticipate that risk is different than liability. Would that discussion include liability?
Well, you know, it'd be good to tune into that discussion because we've asked, we want to know what is the risk of doing that? And I would assume that liability just kind of hand in hand with that.
Yeah, I
right?
would too,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I think we need to keep somewhat of an open mind on this. I don't know if either one of you have been north to the Rails to Trails system. I've ridden my horse there on those trails. They're beautiful. They're gorgeous. They have a different environment than our train track does. So that's much, much more aesthetic than what ours would be. But we had made a comment, Mr. Mortensen, about a bicycle, kids and horses. And surprisingly, and you had a point, but surprisingly, everybody has, that I've been up there quite a few times riding my horse on that. They have been extremely compatible and everybody either gets off their bike or our horses go to the side. Very courteous. And so I think a lot of risk might not be as high as what we think. And as far as interaction of the users. Now, again, your risk would probably been thinking of the trestle that has been taking down over what's the road in Nevada. And then also the, is it gas pipeline that goes along that? That would be concerned that they on Rails to Trails do not have. So I understand there's more than just the interaction of the users. But I need to let you know that every time I've taken our horses up there to ride, everybody's been very compatible.
Yeah, let me comment a little bit. There's a difference in scenario. The Rails to Trails often in the mountains is going to be very different, or in a rural area, very different than the backyards of people, or like the trails in Portland or Seattle, where a commuter on a bicycle, and I think we're going to see more e-bike stuff in the future. We're not going to see horses, at least by the train tracks behind the house there, I would guess. But even if we do, it'll be infrequent. But you will see people with their dogs on a leash, and it wouldn't be useful for commuting. It would just simply be for entertainment. A slow bike ride, you're going to teach your kid to ride a bicycle. I am sort of tainted by the fact that I commuted on a bike, and it was always frightening to me to come by people with their dogs on a leash. You had no idea what they were going to do, and one mistake and someone's going to end up in the hospital.
Well, possibly. I think that might be more infrequent than what you believe, though. I know that Castle Rock has a extremely nice trail along the dike that people ride their bikes, people walk, and they take their dogs. And I have yet to hear of anybody being bitten, or they usually, and of course, the dogs have to be on a leash.
Oh, it's not a question of getting bitten by a dog, although I've had to fight dogs off before. Remember, I commuted a lot on a bicycle. The issue is I'm riding my bike. The last incident I can recall is a cat dashed out of a yard, and I managed not to kill the cat or myself, but it was just the good Lord watching over both of us.
Yeah, I understand.
squeal.
That would happen just about anywhere, like our driveway too.
Oh, yeah.
Again, but like I said, just take your bike, go up to the Rails and Trails, and I think you'll find that it's not that as dangerous as you might have anticipated. It's quite nice.
Yeah. I don't want us to indicate that we've got a mindset on this, that we're not going to do it. I think we're going to be open. I just think the points brought up on the risk liability with the different features on this particular section, that it's prudent to, let's get that answered right off the bat, because if it's too onerous or it's just too high a burden on this county, then we don't need to go further. And I think that's what we're looking for.
Totally different subject. I see that Wednesday's meeting is at 5:30. Did we get employee staff to keep the doors unlocked, or do we have to be here at 5:30 to attend?
The doors will be open till 6.
Till 6.
Yeah.
Okay. I just wanted to see.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good reminder, Wednesday's meeting is our second Wednesday of the month, and that's a 5:30 PM meeting. Anything else? I thank you for coming in today. I thank you for sharing. Once again, big thank you to our guests coming in and talking about the PFD. And any last things? We'll close this out.
Close it out.
Thank you.